Is your team running your business, or are you running interference for your own ideas? And what do I mean by this is that your goals keep moving, you keep adding initiatives, you keep adding things that you want to do, you remove things that you want to do. You say you want to do something, you have an initiative out there, and then you change your mind, and then you change your mind again. If this is you, you want to pay attention, because this is what we're talking about today. Hello and good afternoon. I have a question for you. Today. Is your team running your business, or are you running interference for your own ideas? And what do I mean by this is that your goals keep moving, you keep adding initiatives, you keep adding things that you want to do, you remove things that you want to do. You say you want to do something, you have an initiative out there, and then you change your mind, and then you change your mind again. And you also, at the same time, you have a team that just absorbs and tries to juggle everything and tries to pick up all of the pieces that are following. If you're trying to pick up all these pieces of rice, they're trying really hard, or they're working on projects, and then you come in and you have all these ideas, initiatives that you want to do, and they're like, okay, we'll do it. And they let projects go, and then they pick up, and then they work hard on something else, and then they drop it. So if this is you, you want to pay attention, because this is what we're talking about today. Because, and again, all your team is doing is they're absorbing, and you're running interference for your own ideas. And it's a common thing. It's a common thing that I see in many small businesses, because as business owners, as visionaries, you've got 1,000 ideas, and your team, all they want to do is they just want to execute things. They just want to do what you're looking for them to do, because they want to do a good job, right? They want to do a good job. And the thing is that what you're missing is they also want to know that what they're doing matters, that their work matters. But so often we're so focused on all of our ideas, all of our things that we want to do, that we miss that piece of it, right? So I have a client, and the other day I was there, and it has been a common theme with this client, where the goalpost keeps moving. And I think I've talked about this in a previous episode, where there's new initiatives. There's every time people come in, there's a whole new list of stuff, because one of the things that a lot of people think is that when you're trying to grow your business, you just need to keep adding more. You need to keep adding more inventory, more ideas, more products, more services, more menu items, instead of looking at what's really working, right? So it's a common thing. So if this is something that you do, you're not alone. I don't want you to think there's something wrong with you. But we're going to talk about what happens. So in this case, I was in there, and I was having a meeting with the leadership team, with the managers, and we were just talking about, because we were having a financial discussion, and we were talking about where the finances were. And what I was seeing is that labor costs were rising, and the revenue wasn't necessarily matching it. And I looked at them, and we were just talking about, okay, well, what's happening here? All right. Labor cost is rising. The revenue is not necessarily rising. So you're bringing people on to handle a shift, or you're bringing people on to do to work, and you're creating your schedule. But since the revenue isn't matching the increase in labor costs, what's happening here? And one of the managers said, well, we just come in here, and we get a list of we get a list of goals that we need to do, or we get a list of new ideas that need to happen, and we just figure out how to make it happen. That's all we do, is we just have this list, and we just figure out how to try and make it happen. And I thought about it, and I thought, when they said that, first of all, the empowerment that they had to make decisions, you could see it was deflating, because it wasn't about we have these ideas or we have this project that we're working on and we're just going to figure out how to make this happen. It was more, we're just given a list and we figure out how to make it happen. So I thought about that, and I thought about really what does that mean between the trust between employees and business owners, which is a conversation that a lot of people don't want to have. And when you have a statement like that, when you're constantly moving the goalpost and you're constantly, I just had a conversation with someone where we were talking about empowering people doesn't mean delegation, just delegation. So with this team of managers, when we were having this conversation, and they were just being delegated to, it was just these delegating tasks, and the owner was in the middle of everything that was happening, every decision, and things that the team wanted to do they were falling by the wayside. So when you are in the middle of everything, or when you're constantly moving the goalpost, what it actually tells your team is that I don't trust you enough to make decisions. And your team looks at it and says, I don't really know what your vision is because it constantly keeps changing and we can't keep up with it. And I'm not really buying into this because I don't really know at the end of the day what is the main thing that we're doing. Do you ever keep the main thing, you know? So what it ends up doing is, again, it's like when you're in the middle of everything, there's an invisible tax that ends up getting added. And that invisible taxes, and why that labor cost was rising, is because you needed more people to handle the new tasks that were coming that didn't really align with the goals that you originally set. So you have increased expenses, you have increased costs, and that's the tax of moving that gets attached when you constantly shift the goalpost, you constantly shift the gears, you constantly move them out, move them around. And that hidden tax is your trust begins to erode both ways. I don't trust because the owner gets frustrated and says, okay, I'm frustrated because if I'm not moving things forward, nothing's going to get done. But what they don't see is the reason why it doesn't get done is because nobody knows what to focus on. So the focus is lost. The focus is all over the place. And on the flip side, the team is saying, well, I worked really hard on this and now we're not focusing on it when 2 days ago, this was a main priority. Now I need to focus on these other things. And I just need to figure out, like, I'm given this task and I just need to figure out how I need to do it. And what also goes on is I've been given this role to be a leader, to be a manager, and all I'm doing is just checking boxes and completing tasks. So it's this cycle of that whole thing of you wanting to implement every single idea that comes into your head, right? Instead of focusing on what is the intention, what are we really trying to accomplish here? Getting super dialed in and super focused. And this is something that we need to do right now, is get dialed in and focused on what is most important. What is most important? What matters most, so that we can move it forward. So, and here's the other thing. When we don't do that, all right, one of the main problems and why people feel deflated and demotivated when this happens is they feel they don't follow through with things, because they're like, well, wait a second, I didn't follow through on that because you have me doing 5 other tasks, right? For initiative du jour. And it ends up being like a vicious cycle. And again, I've seen this happen so many times, because when things get hard, when things get frustrating, the easiest thing to do for most people is to say, okay, this is hard, so we're going to implement something new. Or revenue is down, so we're just going to add more stuff. We're just going to keep adding more things, instead of saying, okay, revenue's down, so how can we be smart about this? How can we really look at the situation and do things differently? Which is exactly what we did. So we looked at it and we said, all right, I said, let me see your calendars. let me see your to-do list. Let me see the initiative list. And we literally went through all the things that needed to happen for the next literal 6 months. What needs to happen? What is on the list? What are the goals? All right. Got everybody together and we literally went through it all. And we said, okay, what is most important? What are we trying to accomplish at the end of the day? What is the mission? What are we trying to accomplish? And then from there, we said, okay, what are the things that are absolutely non-negotiable? The initiatives, the projects, the goals that must be done. That's one column. What are the things that are possibly that align with that? And what are the things that are like really non-necessity, non-essential? And we have that in a third column. And then what did we do was we said, all right, who do we need to accomplish these things? Who do we need to do this? Okay. And then from there, we started trimming. It's no different with a rose bush. When you have a rose bush that's overgrown, you have dead branches on it. If you prune, it's going to start growing again, right? So what we did again is looking at things and saying, what is most important? What is most important? And anything else that wasn't really necessary or were extra ideas that didn't really align with what the goals were. And the goals that we set in January, as things happen, as circumstances happen, as, we evaluate those goals. That's why we need to get into a rhythm with our team to say, all right, meeting on a regular basis, what's working, what's not working, where are we stuck? What do we need to adjust? All right. Doesn't necessarily mean we're just going to keep adding stuff. One of the things that was happening was initiatives were being added that did not align with the brand of the business, the mission of the business. So here they are running around like maniacs, trying to make, like literally running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to make goals and initiatives that do align, trying to get them up and running, and then stopping. And I can tell you, nothing is more frustrating than you're getting momentum and you're gaining energy, and then somebody stops you and you're like, oof, it just drains the momentum. It drains the motivation. So here they are focusing on those things that are important, things that they need to implement. And then they have to stop and shift gears and say, okay, well, this goal came in and it has zero to do with what we're trying to accomplish here, but we got to try and figure out how to make it happen. So then everybody, again, the swirl that started to happen is everybody's saying, well, what is it that we're doing anyway? And like, we don't really understand like what we're trying to accomplish here. And if people aren't clear about what you're trying to accomplish and what your vision is, if they're not clear on that, you can't stand behind it, right? So if you are one of those people, all right, if you're one of those people that you're just, and again, it's people don't do it maliciously. They do it because they're passionate about growth. They're passionate about moving something forward. And especially in a time like this, when costs are high and tariffs are there and everything's going on with the economy, and you're hearing all kinds of things about the government and inflation and this and that and the other thing, there's a lot you have to absorb. But it doesn't mean as a founder and as an owner that you add to it. If anything, you need to get clarity on, okay, this is the stuff that's non-essential. Just because all these other businesses are doing this doesn't mean that we need to. It means looking at opportunities and evaluating whether or not they are something that you need to execute on. Not every opportunity is one that you need to tackle, right? So if you want to rebuild that trust, if you want to really empower your team, empower them to make decisions and stop moving the goalpost. So if this sounds like your business, and if this sounds like, oh my gosh, Theresa, you're speaking to me, we need to chat. So drop me a DM, and I will send you a link to book a call with me, and we can hop on a call and we can talk through where you're at, what's happening, how many goalposts you moved, and start to build a plan to actually keep those goalposts in the ground so that your team can kick a field goal, right? Get those projects across the finish line. So if that's you, send me a DM, drop me a DM, let me know. Let's jump on a call. But until next week, have a great rest of your week. And remember, is your team running your business, or are you actually running interference for your own ideas by interjecting more ideas? Think about that. All right. Have a good rest of your day.